Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We got a couple new projects in the shop. Just going to get a video started on a couple of them. Here we've got a 88 Foxbody convertible. This is Eric Galloway's. He's a local guy. We're going to be redoing the turbo kit on this. I believe this is an On3 turbo system, and pretty standard. I've seen this turbo system a lot on these cars. We actually modified one for another local guy, and we used the headers that were on it, which are kind of funny in their orientation, but we used it, and they remounted the turbo. I think we mounted a GT55 on his, but we're gonna completely take this turbo kit off and redo everything. He's actually bought some downswept headers. This is a small block 4. I think it's a 363 dart block. But we're going to put an S475 turbo in place of that one. I really don't know the specs of this one, but it's already been tuned on low boost. It runs and drives. He drove it in here, but he doesn't like the elbow turned sideways like that. I've always kind of liked the way that looks on these cars, but it does make it a pain in the butt to get to your plugs and everything, especially with this downpipe running right over the top here, which I know that was intended to run exhaust out the back of the car, which we're going to do away with that. We're going to spin the turbo this way, run the pipe out the bumper, and we're going to rotate the elbow and point it forward and redo this portion of the cold side. I think we can salvage the cold side going to the intercooler there, but we're going to be remaking basically 90% of the turbo kit. So before we tear it apart, I just want to show you what was going on with it. And I'll probably get the camera set up and time-lapse Ethan blowing this thing apart and getting it in pieces where we can start putting the other parts on. Everything is taken off the car now. Got it in a pile here. Looking at what the customer brought us. These ceramic coated headers. I don't know what brand they are, but they come from Summit Racing. So just a pretty generic down and forward small block forward turbo header. But we've taken them to the bandsaw, of course, and cut the collector shorter. And then what we cut off, we put in a lathe and machined the flanges back off. I normally don't do this, but sometimes you get an oddball flange that don't really fit with the ones that you buy. So now we got a good pair. These are the ones that come with it that he provided, and the clamps. So I know all that stuff's going to work out, and we don't have to buy completely new assemblies. So what we're going to do now is just get these welded on, the collectors, and then we're going to get them put back on the car with the gaskets. And that'll be our next stage of mock-up. So just a lot of slow wrench turning on those primary bolts. It's kind of a pain to get those tightened up, but got the headers installed and everything is mocked up back the way it was when it comes. So plug wires hooked up. We rotated the intake elbow forward, trimmed out his bracket that he had and stuff where it would bolt back up to the back where it was, rerouted the wiring a little bit, didn't have to cut anything, just kind of pulled it loose and put it in another location. So everything now is ready to start running the hot side. Ordered some materials and stuff today, streetcar fabrication, billet flange, the Maven mount, you know, all the standard stuff we do when we do turbo kits. We gotta get this VS Racing turbo mounted right in this vicinity. So typically whenever you start laying out a turbo kit, the first thing is obviously to get the turbo in place. And after some time of playing with it, this is the best place that we found to mount this one. Remember, he's coming from a lot smaller turbocharger, so this one is a lot larger in its frame size, just physically. So with the headers and all he's got going on, this is the best place to put it. We always use a Maven turbo support. You can see it right there. And for mock-up purposes, you've seen it a lot in my videos, I've got a little stand right there. You can see it's just a little I-beam with an adjustable 1¼ inch tube on it with a tab on it. I usually go ahead and put the Maven turbo support on there and run a longer bolt through it. The tab is level on the top, so I don't have to worry about whether the bearing housing is level or not, because if it's bolted up, it's level. And that's generally how I mock up the turbos on all these setups. So I've got it positioned kind of right over the frame rail. Got me a piece of tube here, 1-inch chromoly. And that's going to go right there. Got it sanded to go on the frame tube. Kind of crooked right there, but when I weld it, it won't be. And then that's going to place the turbo. So another thing to consider is your top pipe routing. We're going to be able to come under the frame rail here and come up here with our hot pipes. Probably do might do both of our wastegates up here in the front corner, or I might just do one of them here and one of them over there just to keep it out of the way, because we still got to do the down pipe and get it out the bumper. But also have to consider the cold side and how it's gonna lay out with where the header collector comes out. So we're gonna come out of there and snake it around and go in the intercooler on this side. And then obviously over here, we'll come out of the intake and go down there. Probably just put a coupler down there just because it's got couplers on the other parts of it. That'll keep it simple for him, keeping it connected. But I'm gonna do a V-band or a dual seal or something up at the throttle body, just because the pipe will come off at an angle. And from my experience, any pipe that comes off at an angle like that, it's got a lot more leverage to blow off whenever you get into the higher boost levels. So let's weld this thing up and get this turbo mounted. So we got some material in from Race Parts Solutions, some stainless bends, some tight radius, standard radius, some aluminum, which I've already used on the car. I'll show you in a minute. We got our wastegates from VS Racing. We got those in. We're gonna start running some piping. And the first thing that I'm laying out here is the passenger side cold pipe. You can see I've used 2 or 3 bends there to get that accomplished, but flows up in there really nice. The reason why I did this first, and when you do any turbo setup or lay any engine bay out, you really want to kind of do things in a certain order, because if you don't, then it's kind of hard to visualize what room you're going to have. And the cold pipe, I knew that was the only spot that it could possibly go and look good, so I went ahead and put that there, which I could have pushed it a little bit further forward, but I think I've got plenty of room with the hot side to come down through here and go up to the turbo. So I wanted to get that in place. I'm going to go ahead and weld it and put a bead roll on this side and get it on there for good, and that way I can run the hot side around it, because it'll be easier to run the hot side around this cold pipe than it will be to run the cold pipe around the hot side if I push it too far out. So just whatever's easier to visualize and lay out in your mind, that's typically what I go to. But we got downpipe flange as well. This is a piece I already had, but we're going to be going out the front of the bumper, which I've already hit on that, I think. But I've got some elbows coming, some tight elbows, so we'll come out of there and come down and go right out here. And then we'll probably, I want to say, might put 1 wastegate up front here, maybe 1 in this line here, and we've also got a flex bellow to go in the straight line here as well, because this car does not have solid motor mounts. It's got a little bit of a bushing in there, so it's going to have a little bit of shake to it. This is mostly a street car as well, not a full race car. So if it was, you know, strictly race car, the boost was getting really high, I would never put a bellow in it or any kind of flex. It's just something to have to babysit down the road from my experience. So but we're going to do it in the street car. These cold pipes welded up and fit back on. Went ahead and put the clamp on there because we won't really need to remove it again. Went ahead and started routing the hot side a little bit, which I don't have the billet flange yet, so I really can't get too crazy with running pipe. Some dummy clicked on the wrong part number on the Streetcar Fab website and ordered the wrong flange. So instead of getting a dual inlet 2.5, a single inlet showed up, and I looked and I guess I clicked on the wrong part number, so got the wrong flange. Taylor's got the right one coming, but it won't be here until Monday. So I might get started running it from this side over and kind of meeting with this, but that's about as far as I can go until I get that flange to know where I'm going. So the main thing I do is get my first pipe laid out, which I've showed you this already, but just explaining the process. The first pipe is always the hardest, kind of picking where it goes, and we picked where this one goes obviously, but I've got the other piece trimming over there, and I'll show you whenever it gets trimmed out. But we're gonna run kind of parallel here, and then we're gonna cross over right here, come under this one where it doesn't get in the way of the V-band flange, and then go over here to this one. We're gonna put a bellow right here. Like I said, this don't have solid motor mount, so we got a bellow coming for that, but pretty much gonna have to run this hard all the way there, and then cut out what the bellow section is the best way to do it. That way you make sure everything is in line. And there you have it. Got the hot side ran, got the long side done. Kind of tricky. One thing I was going to show you, which I didn't pick up the camera whenever I had it on there, but anytime you're going from like here all the way over here, you got a long run. I've said it before about the roll cages. Get you some painter's tape or something, and just stretch you a piece of tape from the center line of where you're going to the center line of where you're coming from, and then you can, you know, easily get a vantage point of where your pipe's got to go, without, especially if it's got to be multiple pieces and there's a little bit of an angle to it and different things. That way you're not kind of just hitting blind there or shooting a long way, because when you get all the way over here you might be way off from where you originally started if you don't have somewhere to shoot for. But pretty happy with it. The pipes are kind of snaky, but like I said, it's kind of working around where his intercooler is and where everything has to go to be functional and still be easy to work on. We've still got a 4-inch downpipe. It's got to come from here and come all the way around here and go out this part, not this part. This is a little double wall section right here, and it's got this little piece here, and I really don't want to blow a hole right through that, so we're going to put it out the front part of the bumper, because that's only single layer, and that'll be easier to navigate one through rather than this. So we got some material coming for that, some little tight radius elbows, and he also brought us some random pieces of material from, I don't even know if they're stainless or what. They might be. Yeah, they look like stainless, but we'll use it if we can, save him some money there. We might need a long piece when it comes onto the outside here, but we'll probably get into that maybe Thursday, because that's when that stuff's gonna be here. Till then, we're just gonna work through and weld this hot side up. what you've been seeing on the time lapse is me and Cody kind of working through the cold side on this thing. You can see the downpipe, I've got it kind of mocked up. I had to sand the top of the trim ring though to go against this body line because it's kind of right in the middle of the bend, so it's kind of oval where the trim ring falls in the pipe, so the hole needed to be opened up just a little bit more, but got that fit the way I want it. And Cody's been working on the cold pipe, which he's over there about to weld it up now, so we're about to go watch that. But you can see it come out of here and come up nice, and it's going to be welding to this Race Parts Solutions dual seal, which has the integrated reducer on it. So that's kind of what's been happening today. We're going to go over here and watch him weld this up. So you've been watching Cody work on the remainder of the cold side. Got that finished up, or he did this morning. Blow-off valve is mounted, and went ahead and ran the plumbing to it, so everything is functional. It's rare that a car comes in our shop running and driving, but this one did, so it's going to leave that way, obviously. Got the holes drilled out for the trim ring. You can see where I flattened it on the top to kind of go with that body line. So I'm going to have to put the downpipe in first and then bolt this up because the clearance is pretty tight. But that's just sometimes what you got to do. Got the downpipe laying over here. It is ready to be welded. Got the wideband hole marked here. Punch that out with the rotor broach. I gotta take that piece out of there. But that's what we're gonna do now. Downpipe's all bolted up, the wideband's on. All that stuff is done now, and we're laying out the wastegates. One thing you got to think about when you're laying out where you're going to put your wastegates, if you're going to have sensors and stuff on them, like this has got a PS100 sensor on it for the dome pressure, and it's got another vacuum line right here which will go to the other wastegate, which will go back to the CO2 or whatever he's got, map pressure. I assume that's CO2 since it's got a sensor, but you want to make sure all that is on your gates whenever you're trying to decide where to put them, because what if you put them somewhere and you don't have room for any sensors or anything like that. So I think for this one Get it in my hand here. We're going to put a bend off of this elbow right here, passenger side, and sweep it around and put that wastegate right there. That'll get the sensor right in a good location where the wire right here that was originally on it will reach, so nothing has to be rewired. And then as far as the other one, we will probably just do it off of this bend as well, or maybe do it off of this straight and kind of mirror what this one is, just so it looks nice. So I think that's the plan we're going to go with. So let's start finding some pipe to fit. So that's going to wrap it up for this build. We got everything put back on the car now. Everything sealed up. Always happy with the way these builds turn out. If I wasn't, we'd be redoing them, right? The customer did want a little bit of length trimmed off of the downpipe. I had it coming up a little bit further, which I did get his approval on, but I guess he stewed on it a little bit and said it looked a little bit too much like a pro mod for the street. So we took the downpipe back off and cut about half of the horn off of it. We've got everything replumbed. All the sensors in the wastegates, the vacuum lines, all that stuff rerouted. I might have not mentioned it, but we redone the oil drain as well. It had just a rubber hose, and that wasn't going to work with the headers, so we did a braided. Of course, it's got an ORB fitting that comes out of the bottom of the Maven turbo support. Got our beller welded on there, which I should have left it on the lift. Show you underneath. I might jack it back up, I don't know. Radiator hose is closed, but don't touch. The best part about all of this, you don't have to have, he could really do away with a lot of this wrapping on the plug wires and stuff like that, because it's really not needed anymore, especially if that one stays where it needs to be, because everything can breathe now. Nothing's cluttered up and laying on stuff. Everything is nice and neat. So this car before, when it come in, I had obviously a lot smaller turbo on it. You see the old turbo kit is laying over here, which is for sale, but it's a lot different than the turbo kit that's on the car right now. We've got dual wastegates on it instead of a single, because going with a bigger unit here, it's going to want to wind up. Once it gets wound up, it's going to need to evacuate the exhaust. So I always recommend 2 wastegates if you can't run one single large one. We got rid of the stainless side of the cold side over here in aluminum. Did a new blow-off valve, rerouted that, made sure you had tire clearance and all of that. So let's jack it up and check the bottom out. Let's check everything out finished underneath. I wasn't able to mirror the wastegates like I originally said, because there's not enough room right here to get your vacuum or your CO2 line connections and stuff on. So I just decided to kick it out this way, and they're both kind of aimed the same direction, you see. So it still looks pretty good. It's just, it's not what I originally said I was going to do. Got them dusted up, top and bottom on both of them. Center good right there where it's easily accessible, out of the way of everything. The vacuum lines, or the CO2 lines, tied in to his original line. Another one going over here to this one. We'll say the inside bolt of the turbo flange right there. I had to take a wrench, boxed in part of the wrench, a little stubby 14 on the grinder, and grind that thing down super thin to be able to get in there. That's kind of an impossible bolt to get to. I ended up putting studs on the back tube of the flange because you really can't get a bolt in that inside one at all. Just about enough threads for the thickness of the nut, and that's about all you're going to get. And a lot of that is having to do with it being a T4. They're just a lot tighter right there in that section, and you really can't rotate the clamp either to get it out of the way, because the way the housing, the casting of the housing won't allow you to rotate the clamp. like I said, happy with the way it turned out. I know the customer's happy. I've done like every other build we've done here. I've sent him probably I'd say 60 plus pictures along the way, getting his approval on things, keeping him in the loop of what's going on. And again, that really helps whenever a lot is going on, because if a customer don't like the look of something, just like this downpipe here, I liked it with a little bit more horn on it, and he at first did, but then he didn't, so he wanted to cut off. So I'd rather him have what he wants than me have what I want. But I always build it like I want it first, right? I've said that before in my videos, and that's kind of what I do, but I have to use the customer's thoughts as well, because they're the ones paying the bill. So I hope you learned something from the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check our website out, rock-solid-motorsports.com. We've recently come out with a couple new things. Just browse around there, you'll see. And we've got some more things in the works. Matter of fact, we've got some new products sitting back there on the table that I'll eventually do a video on whenever we get them tested and get them put through the fire. So again, I don't know whether this video will come out first or the one from Streetcar Takeover, but we did take the car out and race it. The video might already be up by the time you see this one, and this one might be up first. I don't know, but if you haven't seen that, check it out. We're on a hard learning curve trying to figure that car out at the track, but we did run a personal best, 490 at 150, still on low boost. We've got a track rental coming up at Rockingham the 15th with the Grubworm and a bunch of other stick guys, so I'm looking to really figure the car out then, and maybe show some of its potential at that track visit. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.